Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at Operation Yacin Tafki, Nigeria, or thereabouts, we'll see. Okay, see the game. It's an interesting one actually. I've been looking at it and I was sort of thinking, it's interesting. I'll tell you why. I don't think there's much. Well, the thing is, I keep thinking, well, there's no gameability in it because of the sort of dispersed nature of it, and it is just a sort of an operation to clear out the Boko Haram units. And I sort of imagine that they will just run away, and you won't be able to maintain any serious degree of sort of strategic integrity about the whole thing. But the more I keep looking at it, the more I keep thinking, well, it's not as simple as that. So I'll just start from the sort of beginning really on my sort of considerations. I mean, it's an actually ongoing thing at the moment, so it's part of the Boko Haram insurgency, but it's actually sort of cross-border between Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria, Niger Republic and Nigeria. As you can see from the map, there's Nigeria, there's Niger, or the Niger Republic, there's Chad, and there's Cameroon sneaking in there. And so they build this sort of, the four countries sort of pretty much join around this area. So you can see clearly, they've done the Joint Task Force before. I mean, I think they've got another map where they do something very similar. Let me even see if I can find it. I think this is it. So there you go, there's Niger. In fact, it's not too dissimilar to what we had before. There's Lake Chad, but we've got it slightly bigger. There's Cameroon. So there's the multinational task force. There's the Chad units, the Nigerian units. There's the Cameroon units. There's the Niger units. There's Benin units. Cameroon, Nigerian, Benin. So there's more, and this is probably actually maybe a little better. Instead of using the disparate units, in this one I've plunked them together to represent this multinational task force, or this Multinational Joint Task Force, MNJTF is what they're referring to it as. And I experimented here. This is nothing really sort of particular, but basically there's a gradient. And I wanted to put a gradient in. What I was going to do is put just half a gradient, so it went from this corner one colour, and then went to this corner as another colour, but put in the step in the middle so that it looked like it was just two colours. I usually do this with sort of polygons and things, and it's a bit faffy. And I thought, I'll try the gradient. But when I applied the gradient to this, well, it's got some presets, and I just chose this one. And I thought, that looks good. So I didn't even edit it. This is just a preset, so the colours don't mean anything. So there's nothing intentionally sort of otherwise with regards to that. But I thought, that looks quite interesting actually. I've not used gradients before, so I might do more of that with sort of other units. It was also a bit lazy because I couldn't be bothered to sort of put in all the Nigerian units and all the Niger units, and you just, I'm a bit like that sometimes. Maybe I'll go back at some point and change them all properly, but it seems to work for me. So anyway, so we got all these units, and I thought, well, it's one of those other games that sort of it's not really going to have a lot to it. But anyway, so I keep looking at it, and I'm thinking, well, there's three key strategies in here. The first strategy is that the multinational task force need to secure their settlements from Boko Haram assault. So if you read down here, it sort of says that basically what sort of prompted this, other than the never-ending Boko Haram problem, is that they've recently attacked the villages of Arege, Metele and Baga. I don't know where I put them. I put Arege there. I don't know where it is, but I think that's sort of in the sort of the place where it should be. I'm not sure what Metele is, so I put it there. And there's Baga Salah, but I don't know if that's Baga that they're referring to or if it's a different place, but I've sort of assumed it's that. So basically what we've got is a situation of the Multinational Task Force responding after Boko Haram have attacked this place, and this place. Now, I haven't got anything near that. I did actually think of going back and having another Boko Haram unit there so he could sort of go in and do that, but I haven't done that yet. So, in fact, there's no one in Niger at the moment, So the article sort of refers to the Boko Haram elements that are based in the northern fringes of Lake Chad. Now, this seems to be more focused on the southern fringes of Lake Chad, and it's quite a lot more concentrated, really. This is really just to reflect the primary objectives, which essentially state to take out the hideouts. They don't actually even state that they're combating Boko Haram, they're just taking out their hideouts. The links are down there. I'm not going to go into them because I don't remember them yet. But as I look at it, you think there's three objectives. The first thing is really to secure your green locations. Second thing is then to take out the hideouts. And there's no priority whether you take out the hideouts or the third one of taking out the Boko Haram units. So you could try and take out the Boko Haram units and take out the hideouts, in due course, as you succeed on that. But the thing is, there is actually the Boko Haram objectives in their own right. That's to evade contact, and similarly to take out these objectives, and they are destroy objectives, and these are destroy objectives. So you could actually, and in light of that, I don't know how it's going to work. And another thing that I'm not entirely sure about is this is all swamp. So the Boko Haram unit should be able to go through the swamp relatively easily, even being irregulars. But I can't remember how the mechanised units fare. So we've got motorised, mechanised. And similarly, these units on their own are pretty vulnerable to these Boko Haram units. So they're going to have to sort of go around in gangs, or go around in groups. Even a 2 is not going to be, it's still going to give the Boko Haram a 2-to-1 attack. But these units should be able to go into the swamps relatively easy. So, in short, it looks as though there's a challenge to it, and I think it could be fair to say that the challenge may be, to some extent, of trying to figure out how it works, and for me, figuring out the game balance in such a sort of setup as we have here, as opposed to really trying to achieve anything. But I think it's sort of got quite a few dynamics as to what could happen. I think you've got to apply a bit of playing in the spirit of things and not doing anything silly with the Boko Haram units. Not that there is too much, but you could sort of send them all the way off in this direction and sit all on around here. That would be. It wouldn't make sense. You've got to sort of to somehow state that they're holding their ground over here. Just one other little point of observation. This is basically done fresh from maps and things, but Lake Chad sort of covers this area. But all this marsh is basically also really sort of Lake Chad. It's sort of like, there isn't this distinct line between here and here. Presumably it increases in its scope seasonally. So this is probably Lake Chad proper, but during the rainy parts it's probably more consistent. But this is all part of Lake Chad really. It's more of a swampy sort of blob. And you can see that in this to some extent, because Lake Chad in this one, there isn't really the swamp, there's just the lake, and it crosses the Cameroon border. So this is probably what we got in this map, but here we got it covering the top of the border. So you can almost see the difference there, although we do have it covering. So there it's probably about that big. So, but you can sort of use common sense there, and obviously it's better to keep it this way so that the Boko Haram units have something to go into, because they can't really float around in the lake. So anyway, I'll start. I'm not going to play it all the way through because I don't want to create another hour video. No one ever watches an hour video, and I simply just want to sort of give a bit of an introduction to what I think is going to be slightly interesting for the reasons that I mentioned. Now, the first thing to possibly point out is that there are 4 main groups. There's that one there, that one there, that one there, and this one here. And then there's all these other sort of little groups. Now they're not actually a group. They are obviously a group, but they're not set up like these, which are sort of the proper, what I call the battle groups. There's mechanised, motorised, and 2 infantry. The infantry can be pretty slow. These were just here because they're in Doro Gawan, which, from any sort of perspective of history, is fairly continually a subject of Boko Haram operations. But I'm not sure where it is in here. It's more north of the Cameroon border to the west of the lake. So it's sort of going to be about here. So I think it's under there actually. But I'm in play mode, so I can't see under that icon. But I think also in this one, there it is there, Doro Gawan, and there is Baga there actually. So Doro Gawan is, and the thing is, these are important. If you look at this one, I can't remember what, there's another one, I think it might not be flagged up actually, where they attack Doro Gawan because essentially it's actually a, or Baga, because it's essentially a base of the Multinational Task Force. They put their base there, and it was an embarrassment for the Nigerians and for the whole multinational group because Boko Haram actually attacked it and caused significant damage, which obviously shouldn't happen to your, the headquarters of the group opposing them. But you start to build up these sort of multiple pictures, and you can sort of see these places. So we could possibly put Baga on, but due to the scale, maybe not. But Baga might be there. But I'll put that one in now. And the reason I put these in here is because I do sort of know that area, or the end of that road, as we keep commonly finding, is their headquarters for their Multinational Joint Task Force. And so that's what they're doing there, to really stop them from taking this place, which, as I was sort of pointing to, you could sort of float these Boko Haram units over, and there's nothing significant, there's no major city, but just to stop them from taking that one easily, because I think that's a sort of fairly key place. But with regards to strategy, so you've got these groups. These are sort of the things that you've got to play with most. And then these other ones, sort of, well, they would be sort of screening. But the thing is, there's not much to them. So I think the thing to do to some extent is to try and group them. So I think we could get 2 groups from this, and possibly 3. Now what I was thinking is I can't click through the stack there, but the mechanised and the motorised could act as a fast response units around the edge, whilst the infantry will go into the swamp. So similarly here, so this group here would sort of integrate with that to create a stack of 3 infantry with this faster moving mechanised and motorised, going around the edge. I'll get onto another bit of strategy in a bit. But basically we've got this, so these could stick together, and somehow these units could either we could move the infantry this way and that way to join, to then enter the swamps there, with the faster units, moving along this this edge and responding accordingly. Here we've got that these could also, there's some motorised there, so these 2 units could sort of move in this way, depending on whether the motorised get into the swamp or not. So maybe they could join up with these, and obviously we've got the same thing with this group doing the same thing along here. These little guys can probably move along there. These ones I'd probably leave there for the short term, and again we've got these that can somehow come along the road and do something, and then these probably forming a similar task group, because there's quite a few of them coming along this way. And to go back to what I was saying, essentially what this would sort of lead to or suggest is you could try and keep a front line. I was thinking actually something else, we'll get onto that in a bit. Basically not a front line, a sort of a driving force like this, and just come down this way with all these other units coming in and adding in, and then just sort of driving this way. But what I also did think was sort of typical sort of military strategy, again on top of that, is some sort of hammer anvil type action where you sort of create your anvil somewhere. So you could do that with sort of maybe these units, Now, I think the proper way to maybe do it would be to create some sort of anvil up here, where it's a smaller area. But anyway, so you'd be pushing these units and trying to stop them from getting out. But I think one of the things that again is quite key as to sort of how that would all work, I think is sort of interesting, is that you can't. There's no way we're going to create a solid line. Let's get another colour out just to sort of discuss this. Maybe yellow is not brilliant, but we're not going to be able to create a solid line, for example, like that, that's going to stop these Boko Haram units from passing through. So even if we created some sort of hammer anvil, these units will be able to escape and get through. Now, as long as they don't do anything silly, like as I said, group over here, or they're going to be quite elusive, and I think that's quite interesting. And I haven't put any air power in. I did sort of try to do this quickly. I didn't want to create air power with this funny pattern. I just wanted to sort of get it done really. Maybe have to go back and change the units to make them a little more. Because I think they're well structured in this one. And if you look down here, we've got nice air power units. You can see the difference there. I've got the units. There's no reason why I couldn't use these. A lot of them seems to be battalions. This is quite interesting. But anyway, so but there's no air power. I deliberately didn't put air power in because I didn't want to make it sort of, well, we just pound them with the air power every turn. It is more of an operation, if you read the articles, which I'm in play mode, so I can't now, to take out the hideouts. And so you could sort of play this in any number of ways, and it's not an objective for Boko Haram to take out these villages. They do attack, as we've said, Baga, which we now know is actually down here, Baga, Arege, and Metele. So we know they attack these three places along here. So you could play that in your role play, but it's not really the objective. So you could, when playing this, it's not really a case of trying to destroy them. It's really trying to get these hideouts. And I don't think Boko Haram are really going to try and defend these hideouts. But you could sort of come up with some kind of victory arrangement that sort of defines some kind of balance between the number of hideouts lost, number of units lost, and the amount of damage they can inflict to these villages, and then you sort of give them the amount of time. So you can say it's a 5-turn time. You can't afford to lose any villages, and you've got to do, you've got to take out. You get 1 point for every hideout you've taken out, and 2 points for every unit you've taken out. Something like that. I mean, I don't want to suggest anything because I want you to use your own imagination and set your own boundaries on that sort of arrangement. If you're so inclined. But the point there would be that your main objective as the Multinational Joint Task Force would be to ensure the integrity and the defence of these villages and these locations. So I love these lines, but I have to start again on the lines. But so basically you would say, well, okay, well these ones have purple. I don't like any of these colours, to be quite honest. There's only a few of them. I do everything in like red or white. I don't like any of these others. I'll have to change the palettes at some point. But so you can say, well, okay, well we can defend these places. So you can hardly see this. So put nothing there. That's better. So you can defend these places with this group. There's not much to defend here. There's very little to defend down here. And there's these places here. So once you've made sure that you've got the defence of these places, certain, then you can then start to move out and take the hideouts, etc., etc. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do first, because I've gone 20 minutes already, I don't really want to sort of go on for much longer, to be quite honest. In fact, I'm actually going to call it there because I feel obliged to sort of start moving things and start playing it, but I'm pretty busy, so and 20 minutes just going through. But I think it's sort of, still a significant video because no one's going to watch it. But I think that's sort of, you see the point. So, you can get these, you can use this group over here to sort of establish some kind of presence. You don't have to sit in each one, you just have to, in the knowledge of where these units are, make sure that they can't get there. So it could be forming a line along there. Let's get a red one. It could be just forming a line there, which means that you know that these Boko Haram units can't get through in some way. Or if they do get through, if they do even go near, suppose they try to get through a gap, you'd be able to quickly envelop them and possibly surround them and destroy them. So that might be how you do that. Here, again, it probably wouldn't be too difficult to form a line along there, or even just form a line there, pinned against Lake Chad, and then use this unit to form a line along there. Not that you would be able to form a line along there, but you could then use these units, because there's only this one unit, so basically you'd use this and this against that, just basically, dealing with that unit, that road unit on that side. Similarly, you could use these units. Essentially they're free because there's no objectives they need to defend. So we've got all the objectives sort of, these units could sort of, they really only have to do two things here. You've got this one protected, so you'd only need to use these to fill in this space here. And so you'd have, with those lines, everything pretty much protected, giving you a lot of units free. All these units would be free to do whatever they wanted. So you could come down here, you could support that lot of units. You could come down, you could use these ones to take out this hideout and to harass this, and this big task force here to come in here, etc. So you could then start to sort of possibly create a driving line here that sort of will drive this way, sweeping all these units up against the lake, either one side or the other. But I think again, it's something that it just looks really interesting to me, and I like the map. I think the colour pattern is sort of, it's not like changed anything, but having this swamp on this green, it's quite good. I still don't like jungles. Still don't like the Vietnam paddy fields. They're just something about them I don't like, and that keeps thinking. The thing is, I'm rest assured, I'm quite happy with the fact that I can just change these things whenever I want, really. So this one I'm quite happy with to some extent. So one day I'm going to go back, and once I've changed the jungle to something I'm happier with, all the games will change, they'll update. So I'm quite confident with that. But the thing is, I think part and parcel of a good game is having a good map, and there's nothing special about this map. There's no complex road networks, which often always, it's a certainty to make a map look interesting. It's just sort of this. The patterns, but also the fact that it provides us a fairly clear geographic structure. What I am going to do is as a point of exercise, I'm just going to see what the movement rates are like. So, infantry, it takes them 2 movements to get through there, so it's quite slow. So we won't be able to move any further than that. Motorised. 1, 2, okay, let's run now. So he's got 2 movement left, so it's 2 movement to get through. But you can't get into that swamp. Okay. Infantry into swamp. Yep, but his turn is over. So whilst these can move here, and possibly they can't move any further, you can't get into the swamp. It takes all their movement to get into the swamp. Oh no, he's motorised. He's got 1 movement left, but he can't get into the swamp. It takes 3. So I think it's going to make an interesting game. See if I can get him nearer. See, they move quite fast on the road network in the scrub. Infantry. See, I like it when the road networks actually make sense. They become significant, holding road networks and almost blocking them because with these road networks, it can move quite quickly. Okay, I'm not going to move any more, so I just really want to sort of, let's see what we can do here. So these guys simply can't get into the swamp. They can. That's sort of what I thought. It wasn't necessarily what I planned, but that's what I'm saying. It's a game full of considerations, I think. Now, Boko Haram, I've deliberately given them 6 movement. I might review that, but probably not. But I didn't do that in the sort of review that they are motorised. Quite often when it's 6, they're motorised. But I said, well, this is because what we're saying is that they are highly mobile, irregular units. And I'm reflecting that I'm just using the 6, I didn't change it and make them specifically like that, but I did do that deliberately. And what you will notice, actually, incidentally, I did think about putting these down to 112, but these are 5s. So I deliberately did that because I want to keep the Multinational Task Force slower, and I wanted to give these more mobility, just because I think that it will make for a more interesting game, so to speak. But obviously they can come out now and they can sit on these villages, so we might have had to think about that one a little more. I mean, we could possibly got this motorised unit there, but there's probably not much we could have done about him getting in there. We'll have to spend 2 turns to do it, so what we should have done was, instead of moving him down there, we moved him at least part of the way. And the next turn he would have been able to attack and push them out, saving the village. So that's something to learn on that first turn in that regards. But so that's the end of that turn. So we've got a fresh turn here. Mechanised units into swamp, can't go. Motorised units into swamp, can't go. That's what I thought, and I'm glad of that, because now what we're forced to do is use these on the outskirts and to commit our internal strategy with these much smaller, weaker units that can be, readily attacked by these fast moving units, making it quite a dangerous game. So getting these hideouts is going to require a lot of consideration. But I think what you could do is, at the same time, is, and we're probably stuck with this because we're not going to get there, are we? But so we can't get there. We could have got there last turn. We could have done something there. Yeah, so that's the one place that's going to be difficult. But I'm going to leave it at that, nearly 30 minutes. I think, as I said right at the start, if you come up with some sort of, victory objectives, I think you could make something of this. You say, well, okay, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to just protect these, which isn't going to be too difficult. Protect these and take out all the hideouts. And you might say, well, we're not going to bother with Boko Haram. I think that's sort of 1 point for every hideout, 2 points for every unit would make sense, and then you can set a limit. You can play it 3 times and come up with what you consider to be, the way it works. So it's a bit of an odd one, really. Yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.